What's up, New York sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky Keeler here with you to recap a dominant Game 5 by the New York Knicks. Some said they're a fluke. Some said they're too tired. Some questioned Tom Thibodeau doesn't know how to coach. And the Knicks go out and blow out the Pacers 121-91. And are now one win away from their first Eastern Conference Finals appearance since 2000, as they can lock it up with a win Game 6 Friday night in Indiana. Jalen Brunson was dominant. The defense was dominant. Isaiah Hartenstein setting rebound records. And Tom Thibodeau makes a surprising starting lineup change that may have just cracked the code to the Indiana Pacers. We'll talk all of that and much more coming up next here on the 30th episode of New York State of Sports. We'll see you in a minute. You can follow me on Twitter at Grenadier555. You can follow the show on Twitter at NYStateSportsIE, or follow the network at IE Sports Radio. Why don't you email me as well, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Questions, comments, thoughts on the show, not only during our live portion, which will have our 10th anniversary episode tomorrow afternoon, but also just on these post games. If you have a thought during the game that you want to get on the show, within reason, of course, feel free to tweet that to me. Also, today is officially the 10-year anniversary of IE Sports Radio, so happy anniversary to the network. Larry has built a very good machine here of great regional shows, great theme shows. If you have an interest in a team, chances are that we cover it here, and it's for all of you, the fans. I mean, I've enjoyed my time since January doing the show, and we'll have more thoughts on that on tomorrow's show, but it's been fantastic. And for the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel and building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep with the latest in sports and with our shows. Also check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com, for the latest news, IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and stop by the shop and check out the cool merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio a direct feed for all that is sports. It's tough to say you're stunned by what the Knicks did, considering that team has a lot of pride, and from the reports of the players-only meeting after the debacle in Game 4, you knew they were going to come out with a sense of purpose in Game 5. The question was going to be what they were capable of doing, and before the series, we mentioned the goal was to keep Indiana in the low hundreds. I don't know if a lot of people thought the Knicks could hold Indiana to 91 points, their lowest point total in a long time. And it was just a great collective effort. Indiana got out to a hot start. They led 16-9, and then the Knicks absolutely just took over. It was a game where everything seemed to be clicking. It started with their leader, Jalen Brunson, who had his worst game of the year in Game 4. He goes for 44 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 18 of 35 shooting. He was getting anything he wanted to the basket. And I don't know what Rick Carlisle has to change in Game 6, but Aaron Nesmith can't defend him. Andrew Nembhard can't defend him. And I think it's got to be more TJ McConnell. I mean, that's really, I think, if Jalen Brunson's foot is, I don't think it's 100% healthy, but if it's truly back somewhat to normal, the Pacers are in big trouble. Because right now, they don't have an answer for him getting into the paint, doing that fadeaway jump shot, getting the floater. And keep in mind, he only went to the free throw line 7 times last night. At home. You've got to think eventually the free throw attempts are going to stabilize itself. They'll get to the line. Knicks only got to the line 19 times last night. They made 15 of them. So their free throw percentage was much better. And everything just seems to be clicking at the right time for Brunson to have that kind of a game, feeding off the crowd, feeding off the energy. Place was electric. Like, the fact that you have, like, basically an alumni row underneath the court, and John Starks is basically right near the players, it's fantastic. It's a vibe you don't get in a lot of places. So Brunson delivered. Look, the Pacers, like you said, got up 16-9. Then Josh Hart hits a clutch three. Indiana had a 25-20 lead with 3:57 to go. And then Knicks went on an 11-0 run. They take the lead. And really from there, nothing really changed. Second quarter, Knicks scored 31 points. Think about it. They had 38 in the first quarter. They scored 41 in the first half in Game 4. So the offense was much better. A lot of passing. I love the fact that it was just the ball was constantly moving. It was going from side to side, pulling to the open three, looking for the open player for a layup. A lot of good ball movement that you love in this game. Knicks then had a 31-22 second quarter. Jalen Brunson was the big story in this game. 28 points in the first half, 18 of them coming in the second quarter. And a fantastic performance from Mr. Brunson. Knicks also were better on the glass. 27-11 in terms of rebounds. And they were much better than Indiana when it came to the offensive boards. The Pacers for the game had 29 total rebounds. The Knicks had 20 offensive rebounds. If the Knicks continue to pound the glass, then they're going to win the series. They're the better rebounding team. They're the better, and they gave a lot more effort and a lot more of want it. Remember when we did the Ranger post-game show? We said the Rangers, the fact that they said that it wasn't, that they didn't want it more was alarming. You saw clearly the Knicks wanted it more. Diving for loose balls, getting in people's faces. You loved the whole thing with DiVincenzo and Miles Turner. You had the whole thing with Isaiah Jackson and Hartenstein. And then Alec Burks gets a tech for getting in the middle of it. But there was energy. And you love what Dante DiVincenzo told the media after the game, that the Knicks were essentially trying to make it where the Pacers were like, yeah, they're not that tough. Like, we're the tougher team. The Pacers tried to change their identity in a do-or-die situation. Even though it's not a do-or-die situation, but they're still changing their identity mid-series. The Knicks know who they are. The Knicks know what type of team they are. And it wasn't their best shooting game, but they did shoot 46% as a team. Like I said, the rebounds are key. They didn't turn the ball over. 9 turnovers for the game. Indiana had 18. That led to 18 Knicks turnovers. We haven't seen the Pacers turn the ball over that much in a series. And the Knicks in the paint, 62-36. They were able to get inside and do what they wanted. And there were moments where Indiana cut it close. Knicks had a dominant lead at the half. It was 69-54. Miles Turner then hits a couple threes, 3 in a row to begin the third. All of a sudden, Indiana's within 7. You're like, what just happened? But the Knicks kept finding an answer for everything. And it wasn't just Brunson. We'll dive into the starters first, and I want to spend some time on the bench in our second segment. Josh Hart had an awful game in Game 4. Goes for 18 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 7-16 shooting. Fantastic work from him. Even though Dante DiVincenzo didn't make a single three-pointer, the Knicks hadn't really won a lot of games this playoffs when he shoots that poorly from 3. But he did a lot of other things. 8 points, 7 rebounds. He had 4 assists as well. So overall, I would say from the stat line perspective, not a bad game on his part. And he had 3 steals, had a killer block as well inside. So he's finding a way to do a little bit of everything. And Hart also cut down the turnovers. He had 3 for the game. Josh Hart still turned the ball a little bit too much, but much better compared to the past. And you got to give some love to Isaiah Hartenstein. Did only take 3 shots, but 17 rebounds, 12 offensive, ties a Knicks playoff game record, which was Charles Oakley back in 1994. See that 94 narrative just keeps popping up out of nowhere? But he was able to just get the tip outs, just find a way to get himself into the action. And he's been a very valuable piece to the Knicks this year. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I know the Knicks have some big decisions to make on their roster in the summer. But it's very tough to see how you don't bring this guy back. Because you even saw it in last year's playoffs, how much of a factor he can be. And when he was playing extended minutes back in February, what he could do. Played 31 minutes last night. And I think when he stays out of foul trouble, he can play a huge impact on the game. That was the real criticism of Hartenstein in the Philly series, was when he was guarding Embiid, he couldn't get out of foul trouble. And that's the big thing. Which leads me to Deuce McBride. And Tom Thibodeau made the interesting decision to sub out, to put Precious Achiuwa on the bench and start McBride. And the Knicks, I think, as a whole, when they put up that starting five of Hartenstein, Brunson, McBride, Hart, and DiVincenzo, they're a lot quicker. They're a lot faster. And they can keep up with Indiana's pace. Indiana wants to speed them up. The Knicks want to take a shot, kind of final 10 seconds of the shot clock. Pacers want to take a shot within the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. Deuce McBride played like the Deuce McBride that we saw in the Philly series. 17 points, 7 of 15 shooting, 3 of 7 from downtown, 4 assists. And was just a pest to those Indiana players. He didn't get steals, but he made life difficult. And when you find that McBride's in the game from a defensive perspective, when he starts, his defense kicks up another notch. He has another motor. And the Knicks need that motor. Not that, again, we're going to dismiss the whole narrative of they're tired, they're playing too many minutes. It's the playoffs. You play as many minutes as you need to play to win these games. They're that important. But you do need a change of pace, something to switch things up. And it helped Achiuwa as well. 23 minutes. He had 5 boards, a couple blocks, plus 15 on the plus-minus scale. Achiuwa might be better off coming off the bench and playing that factor as that big that Thibodeau can rotate in and out. But it just seemed Thibodeau had the adjustments that he needed to make, and Carlisle's still searching for his. And it also seemed the Garden got the Pacers shell-shocked. This is probably the first time. I won't say it's tough to say the first time, because the Knicks have won 5 games at the Garden in this postseason. But I felt like it was the first time you've seen a team, because Philly competed those first 2. Indiana competed in the first 2 in this series. It just seemed like the Garden got the Pacers out of their element, where the fan base can lift a team. And that's, I think, what the Knicks kind of needed. Out in Indiana, they had that short turnaround in the late game 3, early game 4. And the Garden had to provide that boost that they needed. And a fan base can do that for a team. And I was watching MSG, and Wally Zerbiak said it last night. That's why you get the 2 seed. That's why you fight for home court. And you don't care about what matchup you get in the first round or what's the easiest path to get to where you want to go. You're going to have to fight hard battles regardless. So for the Knicks to get that home game and to potentially now at least have the safety net of a Game 7 at home Sunday afternoon is huge. Because right now, it's tough for me to see a Pacer team that played like that last night, and we'll dive into more of their struggles in the next segment, to see a Pacer team that struggled that way come into the Garden and win Game 7. I don't care how much belief they have, honestly. This show, as well as the other shows here in the network, brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm. The single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres is all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, low in sugar, and high in protein. Planet Jerky, the jerky that is on a whole other planet. Follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Go to their website, planetjerky.net. We'll take a break. We'll come back, and we'll talk about a Knicks player that, if you kids are listening out there, it's a good lesson that sometimes you just have to wait your turn to play a factor down the line and play the long game. And for the Pacers, we'll dive into their offensive woes, and the Knicks once again shutting down Tyrese Haliburton. Or did Tyrese Haliburton shut down himself? You're listening to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back here to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Recapping the Knicks' 121-91 win over the Pacers in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Basically, remember, Indiana won Game 4, 121-89, so essentially the Knicks flipped the script in more ways than one. And we ended the first segment of the show talking about a player that waited his turn to get a chance and has made the most of that opportunity. With OG Anunoby out And at least they're getting good news that he's doing some like court work, and it sounds like if he doesn't, he's not going to play Game 6. If he doesn't play Game 7, but the Knicks do advance, should there be a Game 7? But if the Knicks do advance to an Eastern Conference Final, there's at least optimism Anunoby can play. So the Knicks have at least looks like avoided the worst in that. Now they have to take that step and get to the next round to give him a chance to play. But with Anunoby out, it gives more minutes for someone like Alec Burks. And you look back at that Knicks-Pistons trade where they got Burks and Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich, of course, being out for the rest of the playoffs. And you wonder, was that trade a bust? Because the Knicks haven't really used Alec Burks that much in this postseason. Had to call upon him in Game 3 and did a good job with 14 points. Game 4, even though not a lot of good came from that game, Burke still had 20. And then you look at last night, 23 minutes of play, 6 of 11 shooting, 5 3-pointers. So when DiVincenzo's not hitting threes, Alec Burks can. And you kind of now replace Anunoby's good 3-point range from the corner with Burks. Burks is a very good corner 3-point shooter. And allows you to now move the ball from side to side and use Burks in different ways. He had 5 rebounds as well. Keep in mind, he hadn't played before this series over 20 minutes in a game since March 21st against the Nuggets. And when you look at the Knicks handling of Burks, I'm sure they told him, like, hey, we're going to need you. I know it may seem you're not getting a lot of minutes now, or you're not getting minutes at all, at least in the Philly series. You didn't see him once. But your name's going to get called, you got to be ready to play. It's kind of like when you're in the NFL and that backup quarterback, even though they might not play it as much in the start of the season, at some point, you're going to get injured, and they're going to need you. And Burks, to step up when his name's called, gives the Knicks that other depth option they desperately need. And now if you do advance, and OG comes back, you now have another player that can maybe spell Josh Hart a minute or two, or spell another, maybe like one of the front court guys in Hartenstein and Chua to kind of give more shooting and more of a offensive-based lineup on the floor. So it does help. I mean, the last time Burks made 5 threes in a game, now he was good against Indiana on February 10th, even in a loss, was 4 of 7 from 3-point range. The last time he made 5 threes, you have to go back to February 7th against Sacramento. So, heck of a performance by Burks, 32-year-old vet, been in the Knicks system before. You have to tip your cap to him. Just a good performance from him. Now, you also want to look what the Knicks did well. And what they maybe did in a different way is frustrate Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton had another no-show. Game 1, he no-showed and it paid the price for Indiana. Game 5 did the same here. Just 9 shot attempts in 34 minutes. He was 1 for 4 from 3. 13 points, 5 assists, 2 turnovers. The offense could never get in the flow. And you saw in Indiana, when Halliburton wants to take over a game, he can take over a game. It just, he picks and chooses. Knicks will gladly take that. Like Halliburton's, put it this way, if Nembhard and Nesmith and the other ones are doing their thing, I think the Knicks would sign up for that in a heartbeat. They want Halliburton to pass the ball. And Halliburton's strength is passing it, but he's got to take that shot if it's open. Sometimes when you're the lead guy, look at Jalen Brunson. He'll pass to his teammates, but he knows when the light shines the brightest, he's got to be the one that delivers. You're not seeing that from Halliburton, who also is an all-star, and the guy that got picked over Brunson for Team USA. Maybe I'm being a little harsh here, but you're not seeing it. Miles Turner, until the three-pointers in the third quarter, wasn't doing that much. He was 6 of 12, 16 points, 5 rebounds. Pascal Siakam had 22 and 8, but he was 7 for 15 shooting. Nesmith had just 8 points, was battling foul trouble the bulk of the night, and there's just a lot of weird long ref reviews in that second quarter, and of course, the refereeing wasn't the issue in this game as opposed to other games in this series, but people still will pick and choose their particular things in a game that had 5 technical fouls. But it was chippy. The Knicks want to play chippy in these kind of games, and the Knicks also contained the Indiana bench. Pacers bench had 7 from McConnell. Shepard hit 2 threes. Toppin had 7, and that's about it. So really 20 points from the Pacers bench. Burks had almost 20 by himself. So think about the flip in the series When the Pacers had 46 points from their bench in each of the first 2 games, the Knicks have now kind of evened that out because you've seen Isaiah Jackson struggle. You've seen Toppin will be hit or miss. McConnell didn't have the same double-double that he had in Game 4. They kind of limited him. He was 3 for 8 shooting. Kind of took away that shot that he likes to take from about the free throw line. So the Knicks defense made its presence known in Game 5. And they have to do that. Their defense had to win in this has to win in this series because they're not, even though they put up some good high point totals in this series. Game 5, 121. Game 3, 106. Game 2, 130. Game 1, 121. The fact the Knicks have scored 120 plus points in 3 of the 5 games is impressive. But it also shows Indiana can't defend. The Knicks are the better defensive team. They're the better rebounding team. And usually they take better care of the ball. So if you could beat them with defense and rebounding, they'll win this series. Boston, you might need to be the better offensive team because the Celtics are good defensively as well. If the Celtics do advance, and they have a Game 5 tonight against Cleveland, we'll see if Donovan Mitchell plays. But right now it appears if the Knicks do win one of the next 2, they're going to be heading to Boston for the conference final next week, barring some crazy comeback by the Cavaliers. But still, the fact this franchise is... Think about where this team is, and I love what they talked about on TNT last night. Think about who the guys are on the floor right now, and I'll go through the starting 5. You have Brunson, who was a starter at the beginning of the year. DiVincenzo was coming off the bench. Josh Hart was coming off the bench. McBride was coming off the bench. Hartenstein was coming off the bench. You talk about the team that has at least 3 of the starting 5, if not 4 of them, being reserve players beginning of the year. And think about how much this team has changed. The identity has changed. There's no compared to the beginning of the year, and you had Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, and they've added these guys like Anunoby and Achua into the mix. Burks, McBride now getting a chance to start, and the depth on this team is what's kept it afloat. The depth on this team from the beginning of the year till now has the Knicks 1 win away from the biggest achievement they've had in a quarter century. To me, if they get to the conference final, it's a successful season. I don't... Even if they got swept by a Boston Celtic team, if that happens to be the matchup, I think at that point they've now gone at least 1 game further than they did last year when they lost in 6. They are guaranteed at least 7 in this series. They now have the upper hand. They now have to make Indiana now play desperate. And the key for the Knicks is you have to match Indiana's desperation, which they did in Game 3. Remember, the Knicks had a 9-point lead in Game 3 in Indiana. They know they can go in there and compete. They remember going into Philly in Game 6 and winning that series there. So what kind of adjustments does Carlisle make into Game 6? And what kind of moves should the Knicks counter with, or should they keep the starting 5? We'll dive into a lot more of those on the live show tomorrow as more news and notes come out. But right now, the key is simple to me. If Jalen Brunson's somewhat healthy and he plays like he did last night, the Pacers have no shot. Jalen Brunson's the best player in the series. And he's showing it night in and night out. A couple quick news and notes. Liberty got their first win last night in their season opener, rallying from a third quarter deficit to beat the Mystics. Remember, they will play Thursday against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. It's going to be a fun New York, Indiana basketball week. Liberty Fever Thursday and Caitlin Clark's home debut. Knicks Pacers Friday in Indiana. Fever Liberty Saturday at Barclays. And if there is a Game 7, you'd have Pacers Knicks Sunday at the Garden. So live Indiana and New York over the next 4 or 5 days or so. So that should be a lot of fun. But good win for the Liberty. Jonquel Jones is really good. And on a night where Breanna Stewart struggled, the Liberty found a way to win. We'll have more on the schedule release on Thursday's show. It'll come out tonight. All we know right now is the Jets are playing the 49ers Week 1 of Monday Night Football in San Francisco. That's a heck of a game. They'll be in London to play Minnesota. So who knows if it's Sam Darnold reunion's in the works. The Giants will be in Carolina. They'll play Carolina in November in Munich, Germany. So both New York teams get an international game this year. And it was announced right before I started recording that the Giants are going to be a part of something cool and different, they're going to be a part of Hard Knocks offseason on HBO Max July 2nd, where you get a look at the Giants front office. So people get to look and see more into Joe Shane's process and things like that. So there is a traditional Hard Knocks, but the Giants are now in Hard Knocks offseason. Be interested to see how that show goes. Plus, the Brooklyn Nets announced they'll be retiring Vince Carter's number. Of course, Carter never played with Brooklyn. He played with New Jersey, but you remember the days of Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, and Richard Jefferson. So that's some quick notes. And then tomorrow, of course, we'll dive into the Yankees, their success in the road trip, the Mets. You know they had that good walk-off win Mother's Day. Their offense is struggling. What they can do to fix it as they play Philadelphia tonight for 2. So a lot going on. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Rickinator555. You can follow the show on Twitter at NYStateSports, at NYStateSportsIE. You can follow the network at IE Sports Radio. But again, happy 10th anniversary to IE Sports Radio. I know there's a special coming out later today. The Defining Moment. Larry's going to host that. You can look at the history of the 10 years, which is great. You can email me as well, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. Send your thoughts on the post-game shows, the regular shows. Happy to hear from you. Tomorrow is the special 10-year show. We will be looking back at one of the segments. We will do the top New York athletes to wear the number 10 for each local team. I think that'll be a fun look back into history of the great sports in this city. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. So the New York Knicks find a way to dominate Game 5, 121-91 once again is the final score. After the Ranger no-show at the Garden, you wondered what the intensity was going to be like for the basketball team in town. And while neither team got a chance to clinch a series, you at least feel a lot more optimism with the Knicks today than you did 48 hours ago. And feeling that, hey, in Game 6, even though they're the underdog in Philly in Game 6, and they found a way to steal that game and win the series. They'll try to do that again. So coming up tomorrow, the live show at 2 o'clock, and then we will be having a show Friday morning. The Rangers will have Game 6 in Carolina, 7 o'clock Thursday night. Can they close it out? As Peter Laviolette said the other day, they want to match that desperation. Or will the Rangers be heading home for a do-or-die Game 7? To go from 7 in a row to a Game 7 would be absolutely shocking, and I wouldn't know the adjectives, but we can talk about that more tomorrow. So thank you all for tuning in today. It's been a pleasure. Ricky Keeler here at New York State Sports. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the schedule release tonight as you plan your trips for the upcoming season. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for the live episode of New York State Sports at 2 p.m. See you then, everybody.